thought for you. This kind of continues on with the conversations about my pitiful upbringings, right? My, being like really just ugh, right? It's made a tremendous more amount of sense to me. All right, you see, like upload because something like this, I don't want to have these interruptions, and I usually don't have interruptions. But the signal wants to be that way, or something, or it's my phone. I don't know. But anyway, so I was saying, early childhood development for myself personally, and I talked about the whole arrested development I was going through, right? And kind of establishing a little bit of that setup with kind of the kind of kid that I ultimately was. And maybe in some degrees still am, in the positive sense, as well as what I'm aware of in the negative sense that is part of my internal work, which is why I am in my position that I'm in now. And it's not like that I'm, quote, stuck in it, but that I need this now because I am working on mastering basics that escaped me, because part of my development was my development went backwards. All right, this is the runes, right? One of the secrets of the runes is within the process of the 3 eights in the Elder Futhark system. So the 3 eights, you've got Freya's 8, Heimdall's 8, Tyr's 8. Well, I think I may have gone through them backwards. I may have started with Tyr-based development, because I really didn't care much for work ethical stuff or whatever, but ideas about relationship with God, the spiritual, like I just, got mesmerized by those values as the Catholic and Christian that I was raised as. And not that my family was telling me to be like that, because my family wasn't like that, but to my heart's desire, I chose to be like that as part of an internal rationality, not a external example from anybody in my patronage or matronage. I didn't have any male or female figures in my life that were spiritual directional pointers. So I had to do that for myself. And so I did this without good psychological basis. So my mind was all sorts of weird. I had odd thoughts in my head, right? There are all sorts of guidances that I needed that weren't going to be there. Because I was probably jumping onto some fucking shamanic fucking mindset, like in a post-shamanic world, and my internal system knew that whatever was available towards that was not for me, because of course I went through therapy. I went through there was a time where Sunday school was a part of my life. And nobody was going to sit there and say, oh, well, maybe he needs to be a priest because of his God thing, right? Or maybe somebody did say that, but it was also still a no. Just, I really just ignored a lot of wisdom. I ignored almost all the wisdom. I just it was just part of me rejecting the world that I was in. See, I can understand where all this fucking Gnostic ideas can come from, because I certainly, because all of us, we get born into this world, and then we assume, we assume that everybody's parents suck as much as ours did, and that we don't have a fucking good, foot to stand on. Right? And it's just like, it's obviously not true. It's obviously not true. Right? Like, I'm sorry. You can't just sit there and tell me, no, everybody is actually secretly anxietied and stressed the fuck out. And they're just hiding it super duper well in their shadow. A lot of people that are being seen are that way. Right? And those narratives, they arise from those who like to be seen. I like to be seen, right? I am a representative unto myself. And also there are others that feel represented by me, because I talk about issues that they're aware of, but don't know how to either talk about and or navigate life while having them, or how did you get past said issues. And that is one of my favorite little things that I like to do, because it's just like, ooh, I know this guy's problem, I can help this guy. And I got a good vibe that helping him is going to be a good deal for him, right? This whole thing, it's just what I do, right? It's just like, I've talked about how through Christianity, like, I secretly kind of realized after the fact that whatever the heck was the force I was feeling within when I was at church, that was this true and authentic thing that I called God, in the monotheistic sense at the time, of course, was really tear, because of how in that spiritual side of the journey, I was really focused on moral compass kind of shit, right? I had a deep, tremendous sense of caring. Care is one of the principal characteristics of your perception of reality in many respects. Or the manifestation of your state of existence in the manifest reality, as we talk Dasein, Heidegger's Dasein, right? Care, the principle of care. The matrix is functioning on the principle of care. 2020 and 2021 were your great and terrible examples of dark care. In the shadow or the aftermath of those events, many pockets of humanity have abandoned everything that puts you into big mommy medicine, big daddy government, big mommy medicine, right? That's kind of like become the new thing, because it was always big daddy government. We always understood that for a long time. Big brother from 1984. It was all the masculine. But now we're acknowledging that feminine is capable of evil, and it is different. It is scary different, and the harm that comes in the darkness. And that's why people like me step out and represent, to dispel the darkness, to show you, if you are in the darkness, what it takes to dispel the fucking darkness. least on a personal level, right? So yeah, because it took me until only 3 years ago to start taking care of myself physically. I had gone through all the spiritual I could throughout the 2000s. Went through all of the psychological that I could through the pandemic. And because of the pandemic and because of everything else that was my bad personal choices anyway, you know, I finally had to really get into the physical, to really get into that first eight. Eitt. And to be working in a garden store is so like on the nose for Eitt, because it is a physical labor gig. And so, you know, now I get to run through those things that should have been a priority back then, but I was rejecting it, and nor did my environment provide for me in a way in accordance to my incarnation, you know, operate, right? Like I you know, like I'm doing all right now. I'm way better than I ever was. My God, though, was the way I functioned and put myself out in front of people and everything else just a mess. There was, you know, an admixture of confidences and insecurities at the same time. Being too personal, being too impersonal. Oh God, it's just like, because I just sat there in my internal world and I said, what the fuck do people want from me? Did they want me to be fucking vulnerable? Do they want me not to be vulnerable? Right? Everywhere I fucking go. And I'm just like, I can't, like, I'm a chameleon, but I'm not this kind of chameleon. I'm just network keep. So getting through all of that, the acquisition of resources, the acquisition of strength, the development of security, the ability to pay attention to details, putting your resources and energy into motion, increasing your skill and development, achieving gains from these increased skills, and finally that great sense of satisfaction, right? Like that's what you're going through with the eight, the first eight, because I just described, narratively speaking, Fehu through Wunyo. And I need to practice that more and more and more. This, you know, so this is that for me, right? For me, this is a bigger deal than it looks like to most other people, where, look at him, he's a slave, he's an employee, only working fucking part-time for bullshit pay, you know, at his 9 to 5, and he doesn't get to fucking, like, do anything that he wants at the beginning of his day, and yada yada yada, and all of those criticisms that come from people that are in a different position in life, because most people, their problems aren't in the first eight. Their problems are in the second or the third, often the third. Almost, you know, for most of the layman, it's the third eight that this is development in, right? Because of how much most people need the intelligence and how obvious it is you need the prime material, right? And of course, if you're just on the prime material, that makes you a very, very skillful slave, but it doesn't put you there. It doesn't put you in the place you want to be, right? I mean, you can almost look at it like the caste system. I was talking with some people about what it means that there's classes of people or castes of people. There's the leadership caste, the free agent caste, if you will, the free man caste, and then the indentured caste. And they all have, hey, what's up, Stein? They all have particular meanings, and so I'm an employee. And we all know through the esotericism that an employee is actually a slave, right? So I'm a slave. I'm a slave, right? Am I going to bitch to Heimdall that I'm a slave? I just explained to you why I'm a slave, right? Slavery is always presented in a manner of inhumanity, right? And because we can draw the exact parallel between employment being just an employee and slave, how slaves, were generally dutied to do. We can sit there and we can act like the whips and chains are coming any second now, right? Because all of a sudden the invisible whips and chains don't work anymore. Here comes the real whips and chains. It's just like, no, the invisible whips and chains is all anyone's ever needed. Like this shit. Because those invisible whips and chains, like, for instance, I could just get off the next exit right now, turn around, go home, do whatever the fuck I want, and let that job feel insulted by me, and then terminate my contract of slavery, my indentured employment to their system. And they won't let me back because they can't trust me or depend on me. All right? I could just go and do that. And for some people, they can easily fucking do that. Right? I easily did that because life was handing me all sorts of ease for what I was doing with myself. Right? So, it was no big deal. I wasn't going to be homeless. I lived with my parents. My parents weren't going to kick me out, I was pretty sure, right? So I experimented with my life in such a way. I made easy sacrifices because I knew that I had a bailout on a certain level, right? And even though I still have some of that, it doesn't work anymore. I have to work it, and I'm still working the true personal ability, right, to get to Carl. I'm in thrall right now, but it's like I'm a Carl because I worked on the other eights, right, and have the mind and I have the spirituality. It's all the physical. It's all that first eight. And that's the stuff that I really got to operate on, right? This is why, exercise. This is why fucking fight training. That's urus, that's thorisage. All right, I've got like some fehu, and I'm working on it. The raido aspect comes in, and then through the raido, I get more of the fehu, etc., as well as anything else that I am in pursuit of, because just the nature of raido is in general. And so that's the peculiar situation for me. And and I've put it on myself to show you all of these problems I have onto myself. All right, the truck's already here, so I got to get going. So anyway, long story short is, with this problem unto myself, I need to straighten out, right? I need to straighten it out in accordance with life, and, everybody's susceptible to a tactical nuke falling on their head. So don't tell me what it means to be fucking free, because I'm having a good time within my current abilities and striving for greater and greater reaches. I'll catch you later.